partial funding for the production of New Mexico in Focus provided by the McCune Charitable Foundation.
This week on New Mexico in Focus, the Line Opinion Panel analyzes this week's mayoral debate.
And I think people in Albuquerque are starting to see a pattern here where we've got two gentlemen that frankly don't believe in our city. They can say they love it, they can say they have a passion for it.
Outburst from him in response to that, I thought did not look good for him. I thought that I wrote down actually here, Barry on the road.
New Mexico in Focus starts now. This week we revisit and recap our mayoral debate held on September 30th. Albuquerque's municipal elections take place on Tuesday, October 8th. Incumbent Mayor Richard J. Barry, whose victory in 2009 represented a major upset, met with challengers Pete Dinelli and Paul Hay. The debate was produced in conjunction with the League of Women Voters of Central New Mexico, who helped solicit questions from the community. We will be reviewing selected highlights from that evening with the Line Opinion Panel, who will offer insights and analysis on the issues and how well the candidates are tackling them. Here's the line. Despite historic rains and floods in the last month, Albuquerque remains in historic drought. Climate change is straining surface water, supplies around the southwest, and water levels are decreasing in the Colorado River and its tributaries. That could impact the city's San Juan Chama drinking water project. Now, how will this impact Albuquerque's growth? This is one of the many issues we raised during our debate with Albuquerque's mayoral candidates. So joining us this week to discuss their answers is one of our line regulars. Sophie Martin is back. She's an attorney and former editor of the New Mexico Law Review. From the Political Science Department at the University of New Mexico, very glad to have back Tim Krebs. It's been a while, Tim. Good to see you again. And we welcome back another good old friend, Albuquerque Journal reporter Dan McKay, who's been diligently covering this election. We have a lot to cover here, guys. Let's go straight to our first clip and get some reaction. Water is a big issue here. How would you foster economic growth, as you talk about, in a way that does not overwhelm our existing water resources in infrastructure, and additionally, with climate change impacting our water, what should the city's plan be for reliable water in the future? A long-term plan. Mayor Barry.
Well, one of the best things that happened in Albuquerque decades ago is we had leaders that stood up and started the process of a San Juan Chama diversion project. And now the city of Albuquerque, we're in a drought right now, so we're pulling more from the aquifer. But that San Juan Chama diversion project has actually created the opportunity for aquifer to actually rise over time. That took a lot of foresight. It was controversial at the time, but I think there's several things that we need to do in the city of Albuquerque. We need to continue with our conservation measures. We've done a wonderful job as a community, and kudos to all the viewers for going out there and being good stewards of that natural resource. We also need to start looking at future sources and having smart growth so that we do not overwhelm this great natural resource. There's a lot of opportunities in New Mexico, from desalinization with some of the brackish water that we find in New Mexico. So a combination of water sources through maybe desalinization plus conservation measures. And the experts tell us that we've got many decades ahead of us of smart growth in the city.
Mr. Dinelli, you're next. Again, same question. What would you do to foster economic growth at the same time understanding our water resource issues?
Well, first of all, I'm the only candidate that's been endorsed by the Sierra Club, and it's because of my commitment during my long career in public service, commitment to the environment, commitment to water conservation, as well as commitment to air quality. The mayor has slipped, basically fell asleep at the wheel, because the number one environmental issue facing Albuquerque is our water issue, especially the spillage at Kirtland Air Force Base. This mayor has failed to actually lead on that particular issue. We also need to be far more aggressive in making sure that Albuquerque steps up to the plate, does far more conservation with our water, especially with our buildings that we have in city government. But once again, this mayor refuses to ignore that we have a serious problem at Kirtland Air Force Base with the water spillage. Yes, our forefathers were very much did a very good job in making sure we had the San Juan diversion. But we have to protect what we have now. We have to make sure we have strong conservation efforts in place, especially with the city's water usage at our parks as well as our government facilities.
Economic growth and water usage.
Thank you, sir. Here's a dirty little answer, Albuquerque. Our aquifer is poisoned. I've been going to the meetings at Kirtland Community, and I've been listening to the Air Force. It wasn't 250,000 gallons of spilt fuel. It was 28 million. And they've been studying the problem for 13 years. And they said, very nice gentleman, colonel there, said that they'll study it for another 2 years and they expect to be able to fix it. And of course, being the kind of person I am and being blunt, I said, are you going to be able to fix it? He kept saying, I expect to be able to. We expect to be able to. Next meeting I went to was with a PhD, doctorate after as long as his arm. And he told me, and he told everybody there, he says, the secret is the only way to fix the aquifer is to have an alternative water source. My thought is this: if you can pump oil from Canada to the Gulf, then you can build a desalination plant in the Gulf federal government, because you caused this problem, and you can pump water from the Gulf to Albuquerque. And I would be in Washington and I would be demanding that is done, because we are out of time. Albuquerque, your aquifer is poisoned.
Appreciate that. Mayor first, 30
The
seconds.
reason I want to do that is because Mr. Dinelli has built his entire campaign around giving you false information and misleading information. And he talked about the Kirtland Air Force spill. Let me tell you a little bit about that. The well in Albuquerque that's most at risk from that spill is Ridgecrest 5. Recent studies tell us that the fuel spill at Kirtland Air Force Base could take decades to reach that, but we don't want to sit on our hands. Within my first few weeks in office as mayor, I met with Colonel Duvall at the time, who was the commander of the Kirtland Air Force Base. We talked about the issue. I went out to see Mr. Yonkers, who was the Obama administration designee as the Undersecretary of the Air Force, at the Pentagon. We talked about it specifically. I've met with Colonel Kabenik, Colonel Manus, and now Colonel Miller. We are on top of the situation. We're working with the State Environment Department, the Water Utility Authority, and the Air Force is taking ownership of this important issue, and I have all the confidence that they will continue to work on the cleanup on this particular issue.
We're going to allow Mr. Dinelli, of course, 30 seconds for his rebuttal as well.
Mr. Mayor, all you've done is talk. This is the number one environmental issue facing the city of Albuquerque. It's nice for you to go out and talk to all the colonels and whoever back Washington, but what have you actually done? What have you directed your city attorney to do? This has to be addressed very aggressively. We have to make sure that we work closely with our congressional delegation and not just the military. Turning it over to the Air Force is not going to cut it. We have to make sure that we get our congressional delegation involved, and you have failed to do that.
Mr. Hay, we'll give you 30 seconds as well for rebuttal.
Absolutely, folks, your water is poisoned. I have been speaking to everybody out there at Kirtland, the Air Force. The Water Authority has no solution. The Air Force has no solution. And I was told by scientists that were there, the only solution is an alternative water source. We have no alternative water source. And the pollution is getting deeper into the aquifer. As it was floating on top, it is now sinking deeper into the aquifer. And they can't even explain why that is happening.
Interesting stuff there. Lots to discuss about water, but Tim, particularly in context of a campaign, is it fair for Mr. Dinelli to nail Mr. Berrio about his action or inaction on something that's basically a federal problem and a military problem? Was that a fair shot by Mr. Dinelli?
I think it's fair in the sense that the mayor does have a certain amount of leverage here. He's certainly got a bully pulpit. It's about a fundamental aspect of local government, water provision, and so forth. So I think it's a fair thing. But what the discussion, what it says to me, or what it reflects, is the sort of complicated nature of this particular policy issue, which involves local government, state government, federal government, different sets of actors at different points in time. This is not a new problem. It's one that stretches out over time, and so. If there's unfairness here, it's in saying that this mayor can come in and immediately solve the problem, which again is a multi-level sort of problem and very complicated.
It's interesting, Sophie, the mayor rattled off an interesting list of stars and stripes that he's met with. I mean, I don't know how many more people he needs to sit down with to get moving on this.
Maybe he needs to make a trip to Afghanistan.
Right.
Meet with the generals there. One of the things that I thought was really interesting about that question, about the answers to that question, is that it really was a two-part question. It was about water, but it was also about the growth of the city. And all three candidates really sidestepped the issue that's hanging over the city that voters have said they're interested in hearing more about, and this is something I think that has been true of all three debates. As much as the candidates say, I have a plan, here are details to my plan, I think that all three have failed to articulate real actionable plans, that would help to move Albuquerque forward, and we see our sister cities around the country start to move pretty aggressively out of the recession, and Albuquerque just hasn't done that. And there are other elements that are perhaps out of our control, but we're not seeing in this discussion here the interplay between our water constraints and what economic development looks like for Albuquerque given those constraints. And in the past, I think of, for instance, the water gift that was given to Intel when Intel moved into Rio Rancho. It seems to me we can't do something like that. So what does development look like here?
I appreciate
and
you
these
saying
candidates didn't talk about that at all.
I was surprised that the word manufacturing didn't come up at all in the context of jobs and water. There's a new era of manufacturing that other cities and other states are going after, and water issues are part of that. It's interesting.
And we have to be really careful about how we handle that. I was very aware that it seemed to me that Mayor Berry, and this has been true of many of his messages throughout this debate and past debates, Mayor Berry seems to be giving the message, we don't need to change because there has been good planning. There's continuing to be good planning through my administration. Change is not necessary. He says, Albuquerque, you've done a good job. You should pat yourselves on the back. Whereas the other two candidates are really pushing for those changes. That's natural because of what they're trying to do in order to get elected. But that very anodyne message from him, I think, kind of belies what's happening with the electorate. The fact that the electorate isn't picking up on that and is still saying, yeah, Mayor Berry, we think that we're going to vote for you, is an interesting dynamic.
Well, I like this. Dan McKay, good to see you here. Thanks for spending some time. You've been tracking this thing since candidate one, so to speak. I love Paul Hayes' idea of bringing water from the Gulf, but maybe someone should tell Mr. Hay that's not exactly the purest water on planet Earth either. It's all water somewhat compromised right now. But be that as it may, what did you hear compared to the other debates that you've heard? Was there a commonality on this issue of water, and not that it's come up in other debates, water, but manufacturing and growth and stuff like that? How does this all stitch together, all three debates for you when you hear that?
I can't recall water coming up in any real detail in previous debates. Something interesting that's happened to water, as far as I'm concerned, with city politics, is that it's dropped off the radar substantially from, say, a dozen years ago or the mid-'90s when the city first launched its major water conservation efforts and some efforts also to tap into river water. Water used to be a top priority for mayors, and it was one of the top things they talked about all the time. But the state legislature took the water utility away from city government about 10 years ago and created a joint body that has representatives of both city and county governments. And the mayor is now just one of 7 people who sits on that board. And I think that it's maybe added a little less political urgency to the issue.
Is that because the populace is not pushing as hard, in your sense? Are these folks responding to what they hear out there? Has water dropped amongst all of us as an issue?
It's hard to say. I think it may be that candidates, that a mayor doesn't necessarily feel as responsible, as solely responsible for water as he or she might have, a dozen years ago.
Right. That makes sense.
We're at a point now where basically the mayor doesn't even attend the water board meetings himself. There are representatives who go on his behalf, and the people appointed to the board changes every year. So it's not clear to me that anyone actually takes issue of it and tries to carry it forward politically.
It made me think about my time when I was in Congresswoman Wilson's office when we had the plume under downtown from the dry cleaners. That was the big discovery back then. I got to tell you, Mayor Baca practically had a cot in our congressional office. He was not going to let this go until there was some resolution to this water problem. It's interesting, behind the scenes, he was very, very, very tough. So perhaps that's what Mr. Berry needs to get across. Let's go to another one. The ongoing problems at the Albuquerque Police Department have been a major issue in the election. The department is under investigation, as you know, by the Department of Justice. Officer-involved shootings have plagued APD as well. And Mr. Hay, retired police sergeant, and Mr. Dinelli, a former city attorney, have hammered Mr. Berry on APD, but Mayor Berry has criticized Mr. Dinelli's role, as you know, this part, overseeing the Safe City Strike Force. Let's see how this all played out here. The Albuquerque Police Department is under investigation by the Department of Justice, as we know, for possible violating civil rights and excessive use of force. Let's start with Mr. Donnelly. How would you restore faith in this police department?
When I left as Chief Public Safety Officer, the Albuquerque Police Department was the best trained, best equipped, best staffed, and best funded department in Albuquerque's history. We had 1,100 police officers, and the department is growing. Now we have a situation where we've lost over 200 police officers, and I submit to you it's because of the poor management of the Albuquerque Police Department by Mr. Berry and his administration. The Department of Justice investigation is definitely the biggest black eye on the city's history. I think it has an impact on being able to attract new industry to the Albuquerque area. The city has now a reputation for basically being a violent city. As mayor of Albuquerque, I will reorganize the Albuquerque Police Department. I will remove all top management, and we will put more police officers in the streets. And we also will get down those response times. Under the leadership of Mayor Berry, response times have increased by over a minute. We've got to get them back down because this means the difference between life and death when you're dealing with priority 1 calls.
Mr. Hayes, same question. How would you restore faith in the Albuquerque Police Department?
Well, everybody knows that I know the Albuquerque Police Department. I've been there 25 years. He wrecked it, the mayor. I'll fix it. And how do you do that? Well, I can't restore the faith, but I will install a chief locally, not from out of town like the mayor wants to do, a local person as chief of police that's going to respect the officers, and the officers will respect the chief. Not that they're going to be friends, but mutual respect. That chief is going to have to lead the officers to regaining the trust and the respect of this community, which the officers themselves know they have lost and desperately want to gain it back. The problem is not with the rank and file officers of the Albuquerque Police Department. It is with the top management of the police department. And this mayor let Ray Schultz stay as chief of police, which he still is, by the way. He's on vacation, and allowed, after he said his candidate, Berry, that he was going to replace him, let him stay and drag this police department down to being faced with a takeover by the United States Justice Department. As a police officer in Albuquerque, I never thought I would see that happen.
Mayor Berry, same question. How would you restore faith in the APD?
Well, let me just say that the citizens of Albuquerque have a police department that goes out every day, works diligently on their behalf. They've driven crime rates to 3 lowest years of FBI crime rates in the last 20 years. Last year, while violent crime went up around the country, it went down in the city of Albuquerque. We had some fixing to do after Mr. Donnelly left, certainly, especially with the Safe City Strike Force, where you just got to pay $1.7 million because Mr. Donnelly and his small team went out and illegally evicted people from their homes. Well, let's talk about some of the reforms that we put into place. I put over 60 reforms into place to get our officers home safe at the end of their shift and to have better community outcomes. During Mr. Donnelly's last 3 months on the job, he had 4 officer-involved shootings. That went into our first year as mayor. We put some incentives or some reforms into place, and at that point in time, we've had 3 years now with below-average officer-involved shootings. 2011 was below-average officer-involved shootings. 2012 was below average, and this year we have had exactly half of the officer-involved shootings this year to date that Mr. Donnelly had in his last 4 months as a public safety director.
Rebuttals, Mr. Donnelly, 30 seconds.
It's amazing how this mayor likes to point out a $1.7 million judgment that he agreed to. He agreed to pay $1.7 million. He also agreed to pay $33 million in police misconduct cases. He also agreed to pay a total of $55 million in settlements. And a lot of that settlement money also went to some of his buddies that are trial lawyers. This mayor does not want to take responsibility for his actions, and he's the individual that settled outrageous settlements which should have been tried.
Mr. Hay, of course. Rebuttal, please.
Well, the mayor always refers to it as his police department and being proud of his police officers. If he's proud of his police officers, why did he cut their pay? Why did he not honor their contract? And why is his police officers suing him in court and winning? Why are they now taking a case all the way to the New Mexico Supreme Court? He talks about crime going down. Yeah, the officers are out there, the rank and file officers are out there working every day. But when you have 2 officers working an entire area command, that's a disaster looking for a place to happen.
Mr. Berry, 30 seconds rebuttal.
Well, Mr. Dinelli doesn't want you to know that before we had that $1.7 million settlement, he and the Safe City Strike Force were found guilty by the judge. It wasn't a matter of if we paid a settlement, it was a matter of how much. And if you've seen the Safe City Strike Force vehicle that Mr. Dinelli's prominently exposed in, you will know why I'm sure the Risk Management Department settled for what they did. And as far as the settlements go, Mr. Dinelli, 70 to 80% of those settlements that we've made as the city of Albuquerque, those initial claims happened when you were at City Hall. So yes, we've had some cleaning up to do after Mr. Dinelli left. We're on the right track and we're moving in the right direction.
That's really interesting. Dan, I want to start with you on this. So much there. Let me start here, though. Did you hear anything in any of those responses, trying to put your place in the place of the citizen, that would give us more comfort about how this situation is going to unfold at APD? Or was this just really a lot of he said, she said, blaming about things that happened 6, 7, 8 years ago?
Well, I think you heard a response that's very telling about Mayor Berry's style as an elected chief executive. Mm-hmm. He mentioned kind of briefly the series of reforms that he's done, and that they're aimed at getting officers home safely at the end of their shifts. Mm-hmm. He is not a real showy guy who wants to go out and remove a police chief or announce a lot of big changes. He's sort of understated sometimes in the way he handles things, almost from a think tank perspective or something like that. So what his approach has been to he hired someone to do a study. He implemented some of those reforms, or maybe
those
even all of them.
60 reforms he mentioned.
Yes.
In that bit, yeah.
And he also, I think he relies on the fact that APD is reasonably popular in the community in his view, and he doesn't feel pressure necessarily to speak out against them. In fact, he does the opposite. He praises the department every chance he gets.
Interesting. He does, in fact, have to thread the needle a little bit, doesn't he? As the sitting, his guy, now the ex-guy, Schultz and all this kind of thing, yeah.
I think so, too. I think this is also, though, one of the issues, one of a handful of issues that the challengers continue to bring to the mayor to sort of to pound him on, that I think that both Hay and Dinelli expect to see the needle move on this one, and it hasn't. And yet they continue to hit Berry with it. And this close to the election, I really question why they continue to bring it to him, because it seems to me that the constituencies, the voters who are moved by this particular issue, have likely made their decision about their candidates. It feels to me that Berry is speaking directly when he expresses his confidence in the police, expresses the sense that his numbers say that crime is going down. He's most likely speaking to a portion of the voting population that does feel safe and that is likely to vote for him. It feels to me like they are speaking to different audiences that have already made their decision.
Right.
And so in terms of moving voters who are undecided, who haven't made a decision, I think that this is a non-issue. This is not going to make a difference. And I don't quite see why the two challengers continue to hit at it when they could be putting more emphasis into things that could make a difference for their campaigns.
You know, it's interesting, compared to the last two debates, Tim, Mr. Hay, the challenger, threw some wild bombs at Mr. Berry at the KOAT debate about calling him a liar, that Mr. Berry went on a ride-along and promised him he would fire Chief Schultz. He's backed off from that pretty much. But on Sophie's point, is there any traction you can glean here on this issue from what you've seen from the debate Monday night? Did anybody make any points on that?
It doesn't appear to be the case. I mean, I think the mayor does a good job of sort of grabbing. He grabs the reform. He takes the reform mantle. He defends his police department, and he puts his opponent on the defensive with regards to Dinelli's role in the previous administration. So he does all these things and does it in a way that looks like, I'm out for the interests of the entire community, and kind of don't take on our police force because they're doing a good job, and they're cops and they're on the street every day, and so he does a number of things there simultaneously.
Loyalty works in some households. It really very much works.
Sure, and people like police officers and first responders, generally speaking. I mean, obviously certain communities have a different relationship to them, but I agree with Sophie in the sense of I think this issue as a campaign issue has run its course. And if you look at the last set of poll results, public poll results that came out, it's down the list. And economic development and jobs and these kinds of things are at the top of the list. So it may be time to sort of it's probably past time, actually, given the timing now.
It's run its natural course
to focus on the economy and have a different message there.
Interesting. In a moment, we're back to hear the candidates talk about how the city handles contracts and whether local firms should have a better chance at winning those contracts.
That it has been a hot potato for these candidates, and the idea that it could affect voter turnout has been huge. And so people really did watch how the city clerk was going to handle counting those signatures quite closely.
Among the questions that we get from the community via the League of Women Voters, who was our partner in this endeavor, was about contracts and how the candidates would ensure more homegrown firms get those business opportunities. The ensuing discussion touched on the issue of campaign finance, however, so let's watch this next clip. When the city puts out contracts to bid, how would you increase the probability that locally owned businesses would have a better shot or a fairer shot to winning those contracts?
Under my administration, contracts are going to be awarded to city companies first, positively. It's always going to be looked at among those companies, quality of work and price, of course, what's best for the taxpayers. But it's going to go to city companies first. Albuquerque for Albuquerque. If for some reason a city contractor or a city company can't do the contract, then I'll go to New Mexico. New Mexico and Albuquerque. I am not going to go out of state. I can't see any reason to go out of state. We've got to get the city moving. But you know what's more important? That everybody gets a fair shot at those contracts. The mayor always refers to his friends. As I travel around the city and I talk to different contractors and I talk to different people, they all say, yeah, the mayor's friends always get the contracts. We don't get a fair shot. Everybody will get a fair shot under my administration, guaranteed.
Mayor Barry, same question.
Well, gosh, you know, the way the city charter is set up, the mayor's not even in the room when decisions are made for purchasing. We put $350 million plus on the streets of Albuquerque since I've been the mayor. People said we couldn't get that done. And many of those projects are going to local contractors. Paseo on I-25 is another $93 million contract that went to a local contractor. You couple that with our Thrive ABQ efforts, where we're trying to get all of us to buy locally, and we have absolutely upped the amount of local purchasing in the city of Albuquerque. We're also putting incentives in place. I have a women's pay gender equity initiative right now, where we're going to incentivize private sector companies if they can prove that they pay women the same as men for doing the same work at their companies to get contracts at the city of Albuquerque. We will continue with our buy local initiatives that are currently in place, and we will continue to put work out in the streets of Albuquerque, along with our $5.5 million EDAC fund, which is our Economic Development Action Fund, and have a local firm take the lead on that to market our city around the country.
I believe that we should give preferential treatment to the local businesses, that we need to give them priority, make sure that we give those contracts to as many local people as we possibly can, make sure we have in place incentives to allow that. My plan, Energize Albuquerque, will do just that. Again, the goal is to invest in our local economy, to invest in our neighborhoods. But I find it interesting that this mayor talks about the fact that he's not even in the room when contracts are awarded, yet he has no problem soliciting donations from contractors to his campaign. If you take a look at, he's raised close to $800,000 in contributions. A lot of that contribution has come from the contractors that actually do business with the city of Albuquerque. But I believe, as mayor of Albuquerque, I've gone in with public financing, and this campaign will be beholden to nobody. But we will make sure that the local contractors, in fact, get their fair share, and they're identified and being given preferential treatment.
Mr. Hay, 30 seconds rebuttal. We'll start with you.
Well, the mayor always talks about buying locally and taking care of locally. Why don't you talk about the small business complex at Constitution and Carlisle that your administration put out of business because you allowed an outside company, Smith's, to put a gas station at that corner that doesn't meet clean air quality, that doesn't meet the standards for it's too close to the intersection for the driveway, and that people have been going you've actually closed that business complex up that was a medical complex because of all the traffic that was going through their parking lot and making a danger to the people.
30 seconds of rebuttal, Mayor.
Well, having a plan, as Mr. Dinelli says, with no specifics behind it, not being able to tell you how he's going to pay for it, isn't really a plan at all. The city charter is very specific in how these things work, and for us to have a robust support around the city of Albuquerque from Democrats and Republicans, from job creators, small business owners, really makes me proud. The fact that we've gone out over the last 4 years, brought our community together, and the fact that I have robust support in the campaign, just like the president or a governor or other mayors around the country have. I make no apologies for that. We have a great city, and people know that I'm the right man to keep us moving in the right direction.
30 seconds rebuttal, Mr. Dinelli.
Once again, it's easy to stand up here and say that you have diverse support. The reality of it is the overwhelming majority of your support is coming from the Republican Party as well as Republican donors. All these contractors you've solicited, you asked for thousands of dollars, at times at $5,000 a clip. So your words may come out nice, but the truth is that you know you're going to be indebted to all these contractors once you're reelected, if you're reelected.
That is an amazing clip because it harkens back, and almost as if we were talking about the Chavez administration. It was interesting, because that was the big gripe back then, that all of Marty's friends were getting all the deals. And here we are, Dan, in the same sort of place again. Let's kind of parse this a couple issues at a time. Let's talk about contracts. Is the mayor really, at the end of the day, Mayor Berry says, look, I'm not even in the room. The city charter makes this clear. Can the mayor really be influential on this in your view, or is this something the mayor's safe on?
That is a good question. The city has not made any big changes to its procurement code in recent years or anything like that. And I think the mayor is technically correct that he's not in the room. He has a chief administrative officer who's in charge of the day-to-day operations of government, and they do set up committees that are evaluating proposals competitively. So I think he has some insulation on the issue. Whether the city could do more in its procurement to favor local businesses, the answer is probably yes, but I haven't heard any specific proposals.
Sure. And you would think, Sophie, perhaps the mayor, and I guess I'm getting to a leadership issue here, if he's not in the room and the city charter says he's not the one to make the decision, can he not have a place in this decision by expressing a desire to change that city charter during a downtime? This is what I'm getting at. He's getting away with this, but he has not really done anything proactively, to make this happen.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, certainly I think that the mayor, whoever the mayor is at a particular time, could have a leadership role in trying to make positive changes to the city charter, ethical advances in how city government is run. That I think would be a fantastic role for a mayor. I think the larger issue here, and one that isn't touched on by our candidates, is one of the reasons that people do donate to a sitting mayor is that they may not be thinking there's going to be a quid pro quo here, but they, for instance, a construction company may like that the mayor is engaged in construction projects in general and want construction projects, large construction projects, to continue. And so they may not think we will get those projects, but we want there to be construction. And I think that that's sort of the larger issue that we may see in this situation. We want projects like the Paseo I-25 project to go forward. We want downtown construction to happen, et cetera. And that's a harder issue to kind of get to, and it's hard to even call that corruption or something like that. Now, we have this bigger issue, which is that Citizens United continues to wreak havoc across the political landscape. I know that our viewers at home keep hearing Citizens United, and it is blamed for everything. But we continue to see that even with a local ruling here in New Mexico this week. It is extraordinarily difficult to place limits on campaign donations by businesses at any level because of the ruling of Citizens United that basically says companies are capable of speech. A campaign donation is speech. Very difficult to place a limit on that, here in Albuquerque.
That's right. And Professor Krebs, it's interesting, U.S. Magistrate Judge Cristina Armijo, in her ruling that Sophie just mentioned, said that very thing. This is a free speech issue. We've been down this road federally, but here it is. now for us. And I'm curious how your sense of where Mr. Donnelly was coming from when he was attacking Mr. Berry on this issue. Does that move the needle at all, saying I'm the public finance guy, and automatically if you don't take public finance, there's somehow this dark cloud over you? Can people kind of parse that through on their own in their own living rooms?
Well, I don't think I'm not sure he made that argument directly.
Absolutely didn't.
It's indirect, and so on a thing like that, I think if you're gonna make that argument, you've got to be very explicit about it. That look, and you've got to seize the reform mantle, especially as a challenger. So this would be an opportunity for him to do that. Look, in 2009, Mayor Berry took advantage of the public financing system. This time around, he's not. When a candidate does that, he's undermining the public financing system.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing I think that may have served him in a more effective way. As far as the sort of the issue of the mayor being in the room when contract decisions are being made is a great rhetorical strategy, I think, by the mayor.
Right.
And again, we see him do a couple of things here that are consistent throughout. He pivots to speaking for the entire community, looking out for the entire community. He's got the piece about pay equity, which is interesting coming from a Republican on that issue, to put that front and center.
Good catch there.
But his people are in the room.
That's right.
It's his administration. It's a strong mayor system of government. His people know. I'm not suggesting anything at all, but it's not as though his absence from the room is all that important.
Sure. This is one of those things that's just going to be a part and parcel of every mayoral race.
Sure.
It just doesn't matter, because it is a free speech issue for businesses.
It's a free speech issue, and it's fair game from a public policy and from a sort of a political reform standpoint as well to think about these issues and whether there's any impropriety in contracts, because it's a huge deal across the country at all levels of government.
That's right. Absolutely. Now, new subject, the role of neighborhood associations and their influence. This was interesting. With the city government, or lack thereof, I should say, the influence. This is another question that came from the community via the League of Women Voters, and I love this question. And this is possibly the most heated exchange of the entire debate. I was shocked. Let's listen. 20 years ago, Albuquerque had an independent Office of Neighborhood Coordination that helped empower and revitalize neighborhood associations. Would you support creating a stronger independent city office to concentrate on our neighborhood associations and continuing that revitalization? Mayor Berry first.
Well, great cities are made with great neighborhoods, and they're made with great people. And the good news for Albuquerque is we have both in abundance. We have almost 300 neighborhood associations in the city of Albuquerque. And as your mayor, I've done something very unique. For the first time ever, twice a year, I have a meeting of all the neighborhood associations in town. We invite them to either the convention center, or this last time was at the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta, to talk about issues that are important to them, but more importantly, to get them to step back a little bit from their neighborhoods and see the city as a whole. Because if I can get people on the east side of town talking to people on the west side, north to south, then all of a sudden we are taking people who are already leaders in our city because they're neighborhood leaders, and we're getting them to take an overall picture of the city of Albuquerque. We also send our constituent services groups out to almost every neighborhood association meeting in the city. So we very much believe in neighborhoods. We very much believe that's how our city is going to move forward. We believe that's why we're great today, and we'll continue to have a robust discussion and listen to them because they are our boss.
Mr. Donnelly, you have 60 seconds as well.
Once again, your words defy your real actions. During the last year and a half, I actually have reached out to neighborhood associations. I believe the neighborhood associations are the real pulse to the city of Albuquerque. When I was head of the Safe City Strike Force, I worked very closely with the neighborhood associations. You've gutted this department, and the only time you're really interested in talking to neighborhood associations is when you get all the presidents together in one area. But you have failed over the last year and a half, at least from my understanding, to actually even go to a neighborhood association meetings on a one-to-one. I submit to you that your actions basically show that you really don't care about our neighborhoods. I've spent the better part of a year and a half reaching out to the neighborhood associations, finding out what they need, what their needs are, but most importantly, identifying what their problems are. And for a period of 8 years, I was able to deal with those problems. And we addressed, with the Safe City Strike Force, problem neighborhoods, and we were able to bring down crime in those neighborhoods. And I submit to you, Mr. Mayor, your actions speak louder than your words.
Mr. Hay, same question, supporting creating stronger neighborhood associations.
We have a very good system of neighborhood associations now, and I, like Mr. Dinelli, I have been all over this city in debates where all three candidates were invited to go. Mr. Dinelli always showed up. We debated each other. The mayor never showed up. Period. Never showed up to one of them. So he spins and he talks and he says that he held this conference with all the neighborhood presidents. He didn't show up. He had his staff there. He didn't show up. As mayor, I will go out and talk to the neighborhood associations, to the people in those neighborhood associations, not just their presidents, but to the people, and learn what their concerns are and know what their concerns are. I was at the several neighborhood associations, and they always ask, "Where's the mayor? Where's the mayor?" And I asked them the same question, "Where's the mayor?"
30 seconds for rebuttal, starting with Mayor Berry.
Well, as you can see, I think the whole debate's probably going to be the same MO from my opponents. They'll look the facts in the eye, and then they'll say they're not true. To say I've never been to a neighborhood association meeting, that's a ridiculous claim. This is our sixth debate, Mr. Hay, and I think people in Albuquerque are starting to see a pattern here where we've got two gentlemen that frankly don't believe in our city. They can say they love it, they can say they have a passion for it, they say that they've been to a few meetings, but if they don't believe in our city, they shouldn't be running for the mayorship of this great city. We have robust neighborhood engagement. We spent 4 years really enjoying that opportunity, and we'll continue that into the second term.
30 seconds rebuttal, Mr. Dinelli.
Frankly, Mayor, I have to take real strong exception to you saying that I don't believe in my city. I love this city. I was born and raised here. I've raised a family here. I was at the Trumbull Neighborhood Association, the African American part of town. I asked them point blank, has the mayor ever come out to talk to you on a one-on-one? And the answer was no. In the 4 years that you've been in office, you have never been there. That is a repeated pattern of conduct on your part. But please, don't tell me that I don't love my city. Don't tell me that I don't have faith in my city. Please stop it.
Mr. Hay, 30 seconds, rebuttal.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the mayor, how dare he say I don't love this city? I spent 25 years of my life protecting this city. I love Albuquerque. But the mayor just wants to spin things and say, oh, Mr. Hay's picking on me, Mr. Dinelli's picking on me. No. I'm not picking on you. Albuquerque, we have problems. We don't solve our problems by hiding from them and not admitting that we have them. It's like an alcoholic that doesn't admit they have a problem. We have a problem.
Interesting, what I noticed when I was standing at the podium during the debate, the color of Mr. Hay's face just really, the most of the whole debate. Interesting, Dan, let me start with you on this one. There's a lot of things here, but the believing in one city as a tactic against your challenger opponents. How did that work for you when you witnessed that?
I have not heard that line of argument in past mayoral debates, frankly.
I agree. Yep.
I think that it reflects Berry has almost a disdain for his two opponents this time around that I didn't note in the 2009 election.
I agree with you. Yep.
He says repeatedly throughout the debates that his opponents haven't really brought any big ideas to the table, and I think you just see that comes out in this answer when he gets a little angry at Dinelli and Hay.
Sure, and Sophie, one might be able to say from Dan's observation, like Oliver's, that was the first place the mayor got a little off center. You know what I mean? He just lost his footing just a little bit. Was that tone okay? He fired back. He has all the right to, but you know what I'm saying? Something seemed a little different there.
This was a really interesting question for me. It felt to me that Mayor Berry's response to the question, it was an unusual question. His response felt very practiced, rehearsed, but not necessarily rehearsed for the debate. And in part, my sense of that comes from the fact that his answer, he used the word we throughout the answer instead of I, and that really struck me. When a candidate says we, I always wonder who the rest of we is. I guess he's talking about his administration, but it just seems kind of weird to me in a debate context because, of course, his opponents are saying I. And then, to hear these responses, he came with this very polished we response, and then the responses of his two opponents really set him back on his heels. He seemed very surprised, and so to have that to have that outburst from him in response to that, I thought did not look good for him. I thought that I wrote down actually here, Barry on the ropes. It was the first time that I'd seen this mayor really come out in that way, and I thought this was a really unusual place. But here we have what we've actually seen throughout this campaign, which is that he has not shown up for the debates. And the press have noted that, the neighborhood associations have noted that he has not been present. And here is the moment that it's pointed out to the electorate at large.
Right.
And
it really was
his
kind of a genius
response
question.
was highly defensive.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that he should have been prepared for that question at some point.
Right, exactly. You know, it's an interesting question, Professor, because it's so grassroots. You know what I mean? We're talking about showing up somewhere in someone's living room to hear them talk about why they should be mayor. This is the real stuff here. Yeah.
You know, I think from a strategic standpoint, as far as you know, it's not uncommon for incumbent mayors or incumbent officials to skip out on these kinds of things. From a strategic standpoint, because to attend all of these things puts him at great risk. It gives you know, he's got the big lead, and he's basically trying to protect that. So he's not doing the smaller kinds of debates that the other candidates are, who need all of that, you know, outreach and all of that sort of whatever publicity that might come along with that. You know, so from a strategic standpoint, I think it's you know, it makes some sense.
I mean, I'm just going to wrap you up here because we're a little short on time. I mean, really, does the incumbent with a 30-point lead really need to have someone with a cell phone camera in the back of the living room at a neighborhood association meeting, you know, clipping something you may not think is too, you know what I mean?
Yeah, probably
That's
not.
the danger.
Probably not. But I want to pick up on what's being discussed, though. I think this was the moment in which it sort of diminished the mayor. In this context, because he's done a very good job, I think, of sort of staying above the fray a bit, looking sort of nonpartisan, all about the city, but it diminishes him in the sense that it kind of made me think of attacks on other elected officials about, you know, whether they're American or not, or really, you know, in support of the country, that kind of thing, and it didn't feel right. These two people are obviously devoted to their city. You don't run for mayor and get to this level without that as background.
That's a good point. Now, in a moment, we're back to hear the candidates talk about the controversial late-term abortion ban that is now slated for a special election in November.
I've never seen anything like it in any race, at least in municipal races. I mean, $40,000 is serious money. Some of the political action committees that are involved in the mayoral campaign, they haven't raised $40,000.
Wow. The National Football League is under assault. Thousands of former players have claimed the league has tried to cover up the truth about serious risks. And on the next front line, it's an examination of the NFL's response to football-inflicted concussions, including its attempts to refute scientific evidence linking on-field collisions to early-onset dementia and brain damage. Watch League of Denial, the NFL's concussion crisis on Frontline, Tuesday, October 8th at 9 p.m. right here on New Mexico PBS. And look for a related segment on next week's New Mexico in Focus.
Next time on Frontline, get ready to change the way you see the game.
The brain is riddled with disease.
These players come down with dementia and then Alzheimer's, and then they're gone.
Frontline investigates what the NFL knew and when they knew it.
The level of denial was just profound.
The inside story.
You can't go against the NFL. They'll squash you.
Proponents of a ban on late-term abortion succeeded in obtaining enough signatures to put the question before voters. However, the city clerk could not verify the signatures in time for this issue to be on the ballot this coming Tuesday, so a special election will be held in November. This will also be set aside in case there is a runoff required for this mayoral election, of course. Now, while this question began with abortion, it progressed to touch on issues of the city charter and voter turnout. Here's the clip. The U.S. Supreme Court new subject has ruled that prohibitions against contraception and abortion violate the right to privacy set forth in the U.S. Constitution. Do you think that a local municipality has the authority to overrule the U.S. Supreme Court? Mr. Dinelli, we'll start with you.
No, I do not. I do not. I believe that as a practicing lawyer for 34 years, I believe that I strongly believe in a woman's right to choose I think this is a highly personal issue that a woman has to make. But once again, I think that this is an issue that is very personal, it's very sensitive, and I do not believe government should be involved with it. This is a decision that a woman has to make with conferring with her doctor, conferring with her family, but most importantly, conferring with her faith.
Mr. Hay, same question.
I'm the one that went in front of the city council and tried to get the late-term abortion issue put on the ballot during the mayoral election. Unfortunately, I was told that it wouldn't be fair to the city clerk because she has to count all the signatures. Isn't that what we have her in place for? My answer was get her help. It's a lot cheaper than paying $750,000 for a second election, a special election. A woman's right to choose, I am not in favor of taking away a woman's right to choose, but I am in favor of making sure that that fetus cannot feel any type of pain before an abortion is commenced. And again, in special circumstances, the mother's health, the quality of life for that fetus, of course, there's always exceptions to every rule. But it's not a local issue, folks, and Congress isn't going to solve it because they don't solve anything. They're going to kick it over to the Supreme Court, and that's where it's going to be eventually solved. Because whatever decision is made eventually in Albuquerque is going to go through the court systems. We all know it, so why not just admit what it is?
Mr. Berry, Mayor Berry, pardon me.
Well, I get a little background may help some of the viewers as well. The reason we have some of these referendums coming through, whether it was the minimum wage referendum or the 50% to win a ballot initiative referendum, or now the late-term abortion initiative, the city charter spells out how members of our community can go out and collect enough signatures, and that goes onto the ballot for all of us to vote on. This particular ballot initiative that you're speaking of, Gene, will be on not on our mayoral election, but it'll be on a November 19th ballot. And I think the citizens of Albuquerque, well, I know, will go out and they'll vote individually. There's 330,000 of us who vote, or who are registered voters in the city of Albuquerque. People will go vote on that. If that passes, if it fails, it fails. If it passes, I believe there will be immediate court challenges to that. And I believe that issue will ultimately be decided in the courts. It's really not a mayoral issue per se, but I think the courts will have a lot to say about what any one of us, if we were the mayor, can and can't do if that does pass us.
Now time for 30-second rebuttal, starting with Mr. Dinelli.
This is a mayoral issue. It's an issue of leadership. A woman's right to choose is a very sensitive one that has to be made by a woman, conferring with her doctor, conferring with her family, and also conferring with her faith. This draconian legislation that's going to be on next month's ballot, there's no exception for rape or incest. But I believe that this mayor failed in leadership by not condemning Albuquerque being called the Holocaust of New Mexico and condemning this outside group that came into Albuquerque to push this initiative.
30 seconds rebuttal, Mr. Hay.
Well, the mayor never stated his position on the late-term abortion issue, and we never ever got an answer on why the city council kicked it down the road to a special election. 13% of you people voted in the last election in Albuquerque. 13% of you. I knew if this was on the ballot for the mayoral election, that percentage would increase to 80 to 90%, because if you're for it or if you're against it, you're going to come out and vote. And I wanted to get it on the ballot to get the voters driven to the polls.
Mayor Berry, 30 seconds.
Well, as you can see from Mr. Dinelli's answer, he's running a hyper-partisan campaign in a nonpartisan race. He's trying to take this issue that the city charter spells out very specifically on how it's supposed to work, turn it into a mayoral issue for purposes of political gain. The fact of the matter is the charter dictates how these situations will work. It doesn't take mayoral signature to get it on the ballot. It simply runs through the system, whether it's minimum wage, whether it's this initiative, or whether it's any other initiative. And I think we'll see more of these coming up the way the charter is written. So I think the best thing we can do as a city is treat each other with dignity and respect. He's been called out for running false ads on a hyper-partisan basis on this particular issue, and it's the wrong thing to do. Let's just go out and vote our conscience as a city.
Interesting. Sophie, let me start with you. I like how, first of all, I like how the mayor sort of like reports the issue. This is how it works.
He is trying so hard not to talk about his own beliefs on the abortion issue.
But he also said it's not a mayoral issue. Is it, or is it not a mayoral issue?
Well, it's interesting because certainly Operation Rescue, which is the group that brought the issue to Albuquerque, is trying to make it a city issue, and that has the potential to make it a mayoral issue. And the candidates, 2 of the 3 candidates, have come out and have made statements on the issue as it has impacted the city, because protesters have been here. Certainly, protesters have been here for a long time. If you've driven along Lomas near I-25, you've seen protesters there on San Mateo, et cetera. But suddenly, it is at the forefront of our political, in our voting situation. The other thing, though, that I think that Paula Hay has really brought forward is that it has been a hot potato for these candidates, and the idea that it could affect voter turnout has been huge. And so people really did watch how the city clerk was going to handle counting those signatures quite closely. Was she going to get it done in time for this to show up on the mayoral, this first round of elections? Was it going to show up in the special election? And there was a lot of kind of trying to figure out how would it affect this first round of elections. Would it help the Republicans? Would it help the Democrats, et cetera? I think at the end of the day, no one was really sure.
That's a good point. And Professor Krebs, it's interesting, people are going to come out and vote for this anyway, if you're that whipped up about it, as Mr. Hay is saying. What was the opportunity missed, however, for this mayoral race? In your view, would it have changed anything markedly? Would the mayor's lead somehow have vanished on Election Day just because this was on the ballot as well? I mean, what's the true impact here?
Again, we don't know. I would agree with Sophie. We don't know, because on the one hand, the conservative voters who really want to push this, they would be encouraged to turn out. The liberal voters who oppose it would be encouraged to turn out. There's going to be people in the middle who might who be independent to say, well, I don't support late-term abortions, and so we don't know how they're going to vote. And there are going to be weak sort of Democratic identifiers like, yeah, I kind of agree with this policy. That's okay. So it's very unclear. I mean, my initial thought on this, and I think I may have expressed this to Dan in a conversation, was that it looks like it might be the kind of thing that would energize conservatives. But upon further reflection, it's potentially a wash in terms of its effect.
Interesting. And the partisanship issue, Dan, Mr. Dinelli brought up, I seem to remember Mr. Dinelli's first TV ad, we're under a minute here, but his first TV ad was about being a Republican, not being a Republican, literally. You know what I mean? So have we crossed the Rubicon here? Stop pretending these are not partisan elections anymore. Should we just go there and just like, it's a Republican, it's a Democrat? You know what I mean?
I don't know that we want to necessarily encourage a system like we see at the state and federal level where there really is just no compromise or back and forth between the two parties. It's hard for me to know. City elections tend to be nonpartisan issues. They deal with crime and garbage, and there's not a Republican or Democratic way to recycle material. That's something that the mayor likes to point out. But in this case, it is a Democratic city in terms of voter registration, and the first words out of Dinelli's mouth are almost always, I'm a Democrat. So he has played that to his advantage as much as he can.
Yeah, interesting. There'll be more comments on city council races and other ballot issues on our website. And I want to thank you all for coming in and doing this on today. Professor Krebs, thank you. Sophie, good to see you again. And Dan, all the great work you've done for the Albuquerque Journal following this race. We take a lot of notes from you, believe me, over here. You're really the leading light on this, so thanks a bunch, all of you, for doing this. As always, all of us here at New Mexico in Focus appreciate your time and your effort to stay informed and engaged. We love hearing from you, and social media is the best way to do that. Find us on Facebook and Twitter by searching New Mexico in Focus, and you can find archived interviews and bonus material on our YouTube channel and at our website, newmexicoinfocus.org. I'm Gene Grant. We'll see you next week in Focus.